The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
We're keeping your mind on your mission and your mission on your mind. It airs every single Wednesday at 12 noon and 7:30 right here on Tony Kurre Radio. He's Michael Coleman. He's the executive director, of course, the Jimmie Hale Mission, and this is his show called Mission Minded. Michael, how are you, brother? Everything good?
Doing fantastic. Just another great opportunity to come and talk about the things that I'm most passionate about, which is client care in the nonprofit world and making an impact on your community and changing lives. And so just thankful for the opportunity to be here.
Let me back it up just a little bit. Obviously, as we're recording this show, the Omicron variant is just rearing its ugly head. And it seems like, I don't know if people know they have it and they don't want to get tested, or they can't get tested, or they're just not doing anything because they don't feel really bad. How has that affected your business and your mission at the Jimmie Hale Mission?
We get our clients tested because communal living, there's a whole sort of a different set of rules that govern communal living. And so that's a real challenge for us. And we just this week have experienced some, our first real rush of Omicron. But what we're really doing is we've kind of shut down training for the week to let everybody be in a position to get the right care. We're closely monitoring all our clients, but we're kind of treating it like the flu, if you will. And so we're closely monitoring temperature and symptoms. And the instant a client communicates to us that they're struggling with something heavier, we will take them to the emergency room. So that's just kind of how we're managing this. We think it's going to go through the mission. Most will get it. It's so contagious. We're just so thankful it's not the same as the Delta variant in terms of impact.
No doubt.
So we just try to manage it as best we can and treat everybody on a case-by-case basis.
I'm super excited about this show, and this is our second show at Mission Minded with Michael Coleman here, the executive director of Jimmie Hale Mission. This is not a show about Jimmie Hale Mission, but it's about non-for-profits, about business, entrepreneurialships, and everything else that goes along with it, and we kind of walk you through these steps. And I've been through these steps, and I'm still finding my way. Just because you have a great idea and a great passion for something doesn't mean you're going to have a successful business. You must surround yourself with, for example, James Michael Keats, my director of programming, and Michael Coleman's, who give me great content and great shows. But we talked briefly last week about the vision. Everyone says you must have a vision. What's your vision? And then we'll get into mission statements and everything else. And I always think about, because visions to me are dreams. And you want to shoot as far. I've had a lot of people say, listen, you have a radio station. What's your vision for this radio station? And obviously you want to shoot for the moon. You want to say, I want to be the number one radio station, not only in this country, but in the world. I want to start with Birmingham. I want to start with this store, open up franchise out. And sometimes in the midst of that, it's overwhelming because you're not getting to your end vision as soon as you like to. And listen, Michael, Starbucks has been around for 50 years. I didn't hear the word Starbucks until about 7, 8, 9 years ago. And now it seems like there's a Starbucks in every corner. That business has been around since 1971. It took 50 years for it to get to where it is. And I don't think people realize how long it takes for some businesses, not only from a successful standpoint, from a standpoint that maybe it's just not their time. Maybe they're before their time. Maybe business is cyclical like life it is in itself. So I want you to kind of go back to what you were talking about last week, because I listened to the show twice and I love it. But talk about the vision casting you talk about. What's the right thing to do when you're creating a vision for your non-for-profit or for your business, and to try to keep it enveloped into an area that is actually attainable?
Yeah. So for me, when you start a business, you have to, especially for a nonprofit, if you're getting into that work, you're like, the goal is to make an impact. Well, everywhere you turn, there's need out there. There's opportunities to impact people. And so what you need to do is understand, hey, where do I want to go? And so what vision casting is really about is you're laying out a positive direction that you desire your organization to go. And then you're painting a picture of what success looks like. And it's so important. It helps people understand the whys of decision making. So for example, if I effectively communicate to my organization and the stakeholders in that organization, which for me are volunteers, they're donors, they're board of directors, they're employees, everybody who's connected to us, it's incumbent upon me to let them know where we're going, because if I don't, and I make a decision outside of the context of a vision, it may not make any sense, the decisions that I make. Mm-hmm. However, if they understand I'm making a decision because it moves us towards the vision, or if I implement this program, it's because we're moving towards something, the ultimate accomplishment, then it helps them get on board with what you're doing and actually helping support you. The greatest problem that I've seen, though, is with people setting a vision is when they throw it out there, sometimes it's something that just is unachievable. And I'm not talking about dream small. I'm a big dreamer. But sometimes you say, well, I want something, or it's so broad, you can't wrap your arms around it. And so it's very discouraging when you're moving towards something that's unrealistic. After a while, people are going to connect to that and say, oh, wow, he's just really going nowhere. The other problem is, and I see this problem more so in the nonprofit world than anywhere else, is they have a vision statement, but they're not driven by that vision statement. In other words, they come to work and they're like, okay, we are here to help these clients. And they come in every day and they just do that work and then they go home. It's not about moving the organization forward and growing the organization. I'm not talking about just in size, but in purpose and intensity and how well, into excellence and all the things you're doing to make a greater impact. And the reality is that falls on the shoulders of the leader. If you have a leader of your organization who not only has a vision, but has to communicate that vision and lead and make the decisions associated with that, so everything is being forced forward, then you're going to get stagnant. And it's very true in the nonprofit world. If you want to make an impact, if you want to stay relevant, you have to be moving towards something. Otherwise, you will absolutely die on the vine.
It's called Mission Minded. It's a show that airs every Wednesday at noon and 7:30 here exclusively on Tony Kurre Radio. He's Michael Coleman. Mission Minded airs right here, and I'm Tony Kurre. And I brought this up a little bit last week because a lot of times people may have an idea and they turn it into what they express as a vision, and then as they get involved in this business venture, their vision starts to change. Maybe it gets a little smaller, maybe it gets a little broader. What are your thought processes on how to control that vision? Because obviously, if you're just kind of going with the flow and you're like, well, this is not working, so we better go this direction, and you're just a spaghetti thrower, sometimes you can lose track of what the original vision was, right?
Absolutely, and it's going to help. I mean, that's going to absolutely happen. I jotted down just a few things I wanted to share in terms of how to help, just give people some practical ways. And maybe you've done this, or maybe you've done something that looks like this. So it doesn't have to be done exactly as I'm saying, but here's just a few things that that I think will help answer that question that you've raised. Mm-hmm. And the very first thing I had written down was involve employees, involve leaders, involve people in the establishment and the enhancement of your vision. So you may have, and I'll use myself, I had a heart for working with people in poverty. And I wanted to help them escape the conditions and that life of poverty and the burdens of poverty. And so I had a vision of, hey, I want to move them in a direction more towards employment, more towards middle class, more towards freeing them from a lot of those burdens. But as I got into the work, I recognized that task was much broader and much bigger and much more difficult than I ever had envisioned. So it goes beyond just having a heart and a passion for something. You actually have to lay this out. And so what I often do, still do, is as I communicate that vision, and then I invite people into the vision with me. And I say, based on your experience, here's what I'm seeing, here's where I want to go. But from where you are and your perspective and your experiences, what do you see as some of the challenges with that? What do you see as some of the am I pointed in the right direction, or do I have a false sense of where I'm going? And I find that it's very empowering to employees if you can invite them into the process. And I tell them up front, anything's on the table. Your opinion matters. Now, we may not accept, I may reject what ultimately you say, or an idea that you put forth, but I promise you, I'm going to listen and take in everything you're saying, because there's wisdom, there's value. Because here's the deal. If I can get my employees to share in the vision where they feel like, hey, we put this vision together, this is our vision, not Michael's vision, then when they are on their own, they are empowered to work independently because they're now a stakeholder in the vision. One of the examples I use back when I was serving in the military was take, for instance, if you had a company of 100 soldiers. If only your leader and senior officers of that unit know what the mission is and know where you're going, then what happens when the everyday person gets detached from those leaderships in the chaos of battle? They don't know how to execute. They don't know, should I go left? Should I go right? Front, back, what? Because there's no direction. But if you inform every soldier in that group of what the mission is, then even if that soldier gets separated from the leadership, they can work independently, still going towards the accomplishment of the mission.
Yeah.
So if you bring that concept over into the nonprofit world, the more you communicate about your vision and then they understand their specific role in that, then it's not just I'm coming in to do some tasks. I am part of helping accomplish the vision. In other words, if I don't do my part, there's going to be a gaping hole left. And you want that all the way from the entry level all the way up to the senior leadership to get buy-in. And so the very first thing I would do is bring employees in, let them brainstorm, let them throw all their ideas out, because there's a secondary effect of that. And that's to communicate to them is not that you just value them, but that you don't have all the answers. And I think sometimes we put pressure on ourselves as leaders that we don't want to be vulnerable. And I think that's such a huge mistake. I put myself in front of my employees regularly and say, hey guys, I recognize the problem. I have some ideas about where to go, but I really would like your input because I don't have all the good ideas. And so I really need your buy-in. And every time I do that and I take in their suggestions, they leave with a sense of value and a sense of ownership in our mission. And that just pays dividends beyond what I could put into words.
What does Brene Brown say? You have to be vulnerable to be courageous, and you have to be courageous to be vulnerable, right? And so
that's exactly right.
They have to work hand in hand. So let me ask you this, and again, great interviewees. I love this because whenever you answer a question, it gives me 75 more questions. I am writing down like a little chipmunk on crack right now. I'm just writing down as quickly as I possibly can. So when you're talking about having a staff and the resources, and you're all on the same page with this vision, how important is it then that your clientele, and we'll just go straight non-for-profit, and we can use Jimmie Hale Mission as an example, how important then is that your clients know your vision? Because you're assuming that you're doing everything right, you're succeeding in portraying your vision and doing and giving them all the help they possibly need to get back into the community, back with their families, back to sobriety or whatever that may be, vocationally, mentally, physically, spiritually. But at the same time, you're also counting on them to carry that torch to the next line in their life. They must feel that vision, right?
Absolutely. Part of building, and when I started a nonprofit just from an idea, one of the things I recognize is I could talk about my vision all day long, but if people couldn't take hold of that vision to the point that they wanted to get involved in what I was seeing and what I was communicating, if I could not either communicate them or I could not deliver that message with passion and with credibility and in a way that I could, that they could see where I was going. And so one of the things I even communicated was how important it is to be a storyteller. Now, I'm not talking about the Mark Twain on the front porch, long story, dragging it on and on. What I'm talking about is sometimes they call this the elevator speech. You better be able to communicate. You get on the first floor and you're going to the 10th floor and somebody says, what do you do for a living? You've got about 30 seconds max to communicate and paint a picture in their head of what you're doing and the impact you are making and the impact on society if you don't move forward with what you're doing. And so you've got to be able to not only communicate that with clarity, but you have to do it with passion to let them know that this is important to you. It's not like, oh, I work at the bank as a teller. It's like, no, I'm involved in this work. And let me tell you, we are changing lives. And here's why I need you is to be a part of that. And in doing so, let me tell you, there's also a risk in talking about vision, because one of the things you have to be as a leader is you have to be secure enough to take pushback on that vision. And because everybody doesn't see the world as you see it. And it's not a right or wrong issue. It's not a politically left, politically right. It's not any of that. It's that people have been shaped by certain experiences in life. Some people may view, I run into this all the time. Well, why don't I made it. Why don't the guy sitting on the street that's homeless make it? It's up to him. And some people go completely the other way that, hey, we need to do everything for people who are homeless. So what you have to do is communicate your vision, but be secure enough in that vision that you can take on the darts that will surely come your way, or people who will punch holes in that vision or try to punch holes in that vision, and just steadfastly and confidently say, we're making an impact. This is our path to do it, and we invite you along in this journey. And so far, it's been very successful. But you have to have the buy-in of your volunteers, especially of your donors, because without the financing in the nonprofit world, you're dead in the water.
And I think the beautiful thing about what you're doing too is you could look at success in a lot of different ways, much like, not to analogize what you're doing with trash, but trash never ends. It's always there. And homelessness is always going to be an issue. It can get better and better and better. I've had conversations with Dr. Rab Stewart's about, the influx of animals we now have, dogs and cats, and have your pets spayed and neutered, and it's just something that will never end. It's just sometimes it wanes a little bit, it gets a little less. Sometimes it's to the point where they don't have the room to store these things. But as you're doing your job and you're succeeding, I would think that one of the things that you would like to see from your clientele is for them to pay it forward. Now, whether that's giving back to the Jimmie Hale Mission or giving back to the non-for-profit that they actually got involved with. And those are the success stories that I love to see. I love to see someone come out of the darkness when they're at a rock bottom, regardless of what that situation is, and then be successful in their own, be community-driven, be back with their families, and then helping out others.
Yeah, and we always are trying to communicate to our clients, when they come to you and they're homeless and they're trapped in addiction and all those things, they are 100% in need. And so we have to give them everything, but we begin to transition them into when they become a productive and self-sufficient citizen and they're living, we help them understand they're transitioning into the workforce, they're transitioning into stability. Now it's time to look back and to create a pathway by which they can continue on this journey, continue the journey for others to be able to do that. So, but they accept that message and they accept that responsibility because they've been on the receiving end of it, and they understand how vital it is to do what we're doing.
It is keeping your mission on your mind and your mission. It's Mission Minded with Michael Coleman. You may know him as the executive director of the Jimmie Hale Mission, but he's so much more than that. We explore his brain every single week right here at noon and 7:30 on Wednesdays on Tony Kurre Radio. Okay, so one of the things that a lot of people don't like to do, we got a great business idea, we have success, maybe we have some investors, we have some money behind us. Let's get to work. Let's create this, whatever it is we're trying to do. Let's start making widgets. And then your boss sits down and says, before we do anything, we're going to create a mission statement. You're like, oh, here we go. What exactly are we? Do we really have to explain to everyone in this room what exactly our mission is? What's the difference between having a vision and a mission statement, and how do they work together?
Yeah, so a vision is kind of more related to direction. Here's where we're going, kind of more like a compass, if you will. So a vision could be, hey, I want to impact the homeless and take the homeless and those trapped in addiction and just impact this community and change their lives. And a mission statement is kind of brings that into focus. One of the hey, let me time out on you, Tony.
Sure.
I put the mission statement down. I want to do I think we can do a whole show on this mission statement.
Okay. You want to, all right,
here's, I'm not really prepared to go into a lot of detail. I mean, I could talk it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But there were some other things. Let me tell you what I wanted to finish on this visions casting. I don't want to beat.
He's Michael Coleman. This is Mission Minded right here on Tony Curry Radio. We've been talking about vision casting, and it's just amazing because I think we go show after show on this. So talk about, and this is certainly something that's very important, I know, to everything you do that succeeds, and that is the commitment to that vision and the failure to not commit to that vision by maybe overanalyzing, maybe getting too deep into what exactly they're trying to get done. Talk about that just a little bit, will you?
Yeah, you see it with people who are both starting nonprofits and those who are leaders, where you get this paralysis through analysis. And I've always, I think it's always important that no matter what you're doing a risk assessment to understand, okay, here are my major risks, and how do you mitigate that? How do you lessen the risk? But the problem is sometimes people who see any risk, the very first thing when you present an idea to them is they talk about what could go wrong. And so that's the world that they live in, and it prohibits them from taking any step unless it is assured that step is safe and no harm will come from it. And that is a recipe for disaster. You will never move an organization forward if you're afraid to take risk. And that's why the most effective people I've seen in the nonprofit world are actually people with entrepreneurial spirits, because one of the things that entrepreneurs are by nature are risk takers. They have an idea for a business and they're willing to invest their own money and step out in there and see if it works or not. The nonprofit world oftentimes have a lot of the opposite of that. And so what ends up happening is, hey, here's what's safe. Here's what I have funding for. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to do anything different. Let's just keep doing this year after year. And that's why it gets stale and stagnant. And then it may still exist, but it's not having the desired impact on the community. And to me, that is tragic. So I think it's very important that you commit to a direction and you begin moving in that direction, even though you recognize that every problem is not understood. Every problem doesn't have the immediate solution available. So you're stepping out and you're walking forward on this vision. And guess what? You know that there's going to be a barrier, that an obstacle is coming up. But you have the mindset is, okay, when I get there, when I hit that barrier, I'll stop, I'll do the analysis, I'll overcome that barrier, and I'm going to stay on my journey. The idea that you're going to be so careful, you're going to lay it all out, that you can anticipate all the problems and challenges and all that along the way, and I'm going to solve all that before I even begin my journey is really disastrous thinking, in my opinion.
I love that because, and I watch a lot of History Channel stuff. I guess I'm getting a little old that and the Weather Channel. But I watch a lot of people who made America stories and how Harlan Sanders got his start and how Ray Kroc got his start and all these things. They were all tinkerers. They were all sitting in barns somewhere tinkering with things and putting metals together and wires together and trying to create these things. And the one thing they all have in common, Michael, is every single one of them failed miserably over and over and over again. I'm not saying that all of us have the ineptitude in order to continually fail over and over and over again for something that we're incredibly passionate about. But here's the thing is, if you are truly passionate about it and you don't let it go and you really believe in your heart that you have something special, whether it's a non-for-profit or a business idea, when you get around people and start showing that passion, they will listen to you and they will start investing in you because they see that you have something in your brain that they don't quite see. They may not have the vision you do, but that's the beautiful thing behind it, and it always succeeds.
I'll share with you, I agree with you 100%. Let me share with you an example of what I see. Oftentimes, you have people who do not want to be trendsetters because they're afraid of what if the results are bad and how that reflects on them. And that's really an ego thing, that they're not willing to risk putting themselves in a negative light. And so what happens is they'll allow somebody else to lead, whether it's fundraising, whether it's board, how you construct your board, whatever it is. They will wait till the latest trends come about, and then they'll measure and say, okay, that's a good idea. I'm letting him make all the mistakes, then I'm going to get on board. But you always find yourself at the back of the train when that happens. And so I prefer to attack problems aggressively and saying, you know what, we're going to try this because we've analyzed it. We think it's the best way forward. There's some risk involved. We've identified the risks, but we're willing to, those are acceptable risks, and we're moving forward. And then when we hit that wall, we say, oh, you know what, we didn't anticipate this. That's a problem. And so instead of being afraid, oh, what does that look like to everybody? You say, well, we tried this and this didn't work. Now we're going to turn to the right, turn to the left, and we're going to continue to move forward. But leaders get so petrified because what if I fail? And yet you see quote after quote from famous people in history who said, the only reason I was ever successful is because I failed 1,000 times. Mm-hmm. You know, whether you're talking about Michael Jordan getting cut from his 10th grade from his basketball team to, and just all the failures that people have had and how that drives them to overcome that. The people who wilt in the face of obstacles and barriers are not cut out to lead organizations to start with, because you owe it to the organization to give it your all. And that means lay it all on the line, to include the risk of personal humiliation, if you will, for lack of a better term. You know, I would much rather say, hey, I tried this. Nobody else was trying, and I tried it, and it didn't work. But now I know. The great quote, and forgive me, it's escaping me right off the top of my head, but he says, I never lose. I either win or I learn. Mm-hmm. And I really embrace that. When something is not successful, I've learned a lesson, like what to do, what not to do, and not let that build so that I'm successful more times than I'm not successful. And as I'm building this experience, but I couldn't build that mindset if I didn't risk failure.
And what people, I think, don't realize is everyone's always looking at the end game. You know, they always want to look at, okay, was this successful? Are we doing the right thing here? What people don't realize, you keep using the word journey, and I know people don't want to use that cliche. It's not the destination, it's the journey. You have to look at, listen, if you're sitting on a couch all day just waiting for things to happen to you, it's never going to happen. But if you're out networking and meeting with people and throwing your ideas out there over and over and over again, you stay passionate about it, and you've got your resources, even if it doesn't succeed at the level you want it, maybe it's a horrible failure, at least you've reached out and you have gained all these different advantages of having these relationships with business people and entrepreneurs and other NFPs and other people that are trying to use the same resources you are. And it's a networking tool, so that when you do catch on to your vision or something starts to click, you've got those people in place. If you just sit there and wait for it to happen, it's not going to happen. But even through your failures, that's the part of the learning process, right?
Yeah, and it's not just the willing to fail, but it's willing to share your failures. I have established so many great lasting relationships because I was authentic, not with just my successes, but with my failures and all my mistakes, not just in leadership, but in life. And just saying, let's pull back the curtain, because I want to be this same person, whether I'm out having dinner, if I'm out at a ball game, if I'm at church, if I'm here at work. I want to be the same person. I don't want to have to put a different face and a different persona on. So I want to be that same person, which means you have to deal with failures. But what you will find is that when you can be authentic like that, you will really impact other leaders who may not know how to handle failure, or may not know how to just deal with that whole process. And you're empowering them to take risk and to have greater impacts in their environment. And so there's so much that goes into that. And I even have my note down that says, make sure that you don't confuse vision with what's easy or popular. People sometimes want to go in the nonprofit world and they have an exciting idea and they're excited about it. They have no idea the amount of work and struggle that goes on to lift people up out of their condition, but then to turn around and raise money and bring other people on board. So the not-for-profit world is not for you unless you're willing to face barriers, face difficult decisions, take risk, and move forward boldly. I mean, that's just, you're just not going to be successful outside of that.
Oh man, we got a million ways we can go here, and I'm so excited about just getting this show off the ground, because this is the most difficult part, is kind of setting that platform and setting that cornerstone for what this show is all about. Mission Minded with Michael Coleman. Where does the money come from? Because obviously you can't run an NFP or a business without money. The mission statement aspect of, we can get into that next week if you like. NFP competition. I've had my own non-for-profit, and I see competition go back and forth, and how can we all have our little piece of the pie and really serve the community as it meant to be. And also something that I want to get into down the road is, how do you protect your intellectual property? Sometimes you have a great idea, and we've seen this a million times, Michael, where someone's got an idea and there's someone that comes along, picks it out of the ground, and takes your idea, and they've got the vision that you wish you had in the first place. So great stuff, man. We'll get after it again next Wednesday at 12 and 7:30, every Wednesday here on Tony Kurre Radio. It's Michael Coleman, Mission Minded. Thank you so much for your time. We'll look forward to catching up next week.
Hey, can't wait. Thanks, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.